Good afternoon from the East Coast where I'm streaming. Hey guys, I'm about to go and finish off the reading test in the SAT, in the March SAT QAS. What's it? I'm illiterate right now. I was able to cover the first 4 passages in the last 2 days because I've just had pretty low energy. I've only been able to do like 2 passages per day. Also, it turns out that when I'm not timing myself and I'm like explaining the passage as I go and I'm doing every single question, it just turns out to take a lot more time. It's just at least in the current, like the way that I am habitually doing it. Maybe I can kind of change it up, but it's totally different from when I'm actually taking it timed and I'm actually explaining the bare minimum to let you guys know what I'm actually thinking and stressing myself about in the time limit of the 65 minutes or whatever. So when I do it like that, then obviously I can't go on like forever talking about what a passage is. But but in these streams, the last couple of days, which is new for me, just taking my leisure to just explain everything, it's definitely a lot longer than I expected. So I think I'm just gonna lean into that. No one's saying anything good or bad about it, so I just don't know. But if you let me know what you think, if this is helpful or if this is too slow for you, I'd be curious whichever way that happens to be. Now I'm looking right now at my screen. Let me pull that up for you guys. Here we go. Okay, I'm looking at my screen and I'm jumping into my March 12th score. Let's go. And here at 15:40, okay, we're going into the test questions and we're going to get into the reading passage, the final science passage, which is starting at question 43. If you miss the first 4 passages of the reading test, then I recommend looking up. It's in the same playlist. If you go to my YouTube page, you should see a playlist called Last Week Till March SAT. And hang on, let me double check. Is it actually prominently placed there? Yes, it is. And you should be able to see the previous 2 days streams. So that should be no problem for you guys if you just go to my YouTube page. All right. Cracking continent. Let's get started. Let's get cracking. Did cracking continent trigger deep freeze? Okay. That's 2004, and then 13 years later, a new idea on the deep freeze. So basically, the focus right now is that both of these passages are going to be talking about the deep freeze of some sort of the Earth. But what was the reason? The first one suggests maybe cracking the continent. So we're going to see a quick exploration in passage 1. Here's my prediction, okay? I don't remember the passage anymore. It's been more than 2 weeks. It's been almost 3 weeks now. I don't really remember the passage anymore, but any natural, scientifically oriented, experienced reader would just expect, okay, it's going to be a short passage, right? Because it's a 2-passage. It's a 2-passage section, so it's going to be a pretty quick passage, exploring the reasons, the research that's out there that suggests that maybe the cracking continent was the cause, but it's not going to take a hard stance on it. Okay, that's my prediction. Because, literally just because of these, 6 words, okay? And then I'm looking at this part, a new idea. I'm going to expect an alternative, something that's not related to a cracking continent, Did we talk about volcanoes in this one? We did. So maybe, something to do with volcanoes, for example, right? I'm not super strong on geology, so I don't personally have I don't have a lot of ideas to work off of when I see something like this, but I can basically predict roughly what might come out. That doesn't mean I'm going to be right, but it just means that I will have a much easier time reading because I know what I'm looking for. Whew. Okay, here we go. Passage 1. The theory that the Earth was completely frozen and merged, 1960s. Okay, so we're doing some surveying, which is a little different from what I expected, but it's also not super different. Surveying is pretty normal, right? Background information is pretty normal. When scientists realized that global freezing could happen if it grew over a certain size, okay, because the size of the sheets causes reflection, which causes further cooling, so it causes a circular feedback loop. The planet could eventually thaw if carbon dioxide from volcanoes warms it. Okay, so maybe one way of triggering a deep freeze is by preventing volcanoes from thawing, from emitting carbon dioxide. Okay, snowball Earth. Okay, we got this from the Earth became a giant snowball. Around the same time, they uncovered hints, these people, that the freeze thaw might have happened at least once at this one specific time. So we're just going through the history of the science so far. But here's what's unclear, and I feel like this is going to be the focus. Here's what's unclear. Why? Why did it become frozen? Here we have Donadieu, French Donadieu. Okay. They've run simulations 750 million years ago. Breakup of Rodinia supercontinent. Okay. And so 750 million years ago, it broke it all up. As the vast land mass fragmented into smaller pieces, they found that evaporation from the smaller seas increased rainfall. I see. So evaporation increases the rainfall because right now we're not having huge oceans, we're having smaller seas. Okay? The increased rainfall speeded the weathering. Okay, so this is not just hang on. Fragmentation leads to rainfall. Rainfall leads to weathering rock. Okay, wearing away the rock, and then carbon dioxide gets bound up, gets locked. We're talking about the freeze right now. Okay, so the more rain there is, the more that the carbon dioxide gets taken out of the air. Therefore, it freezes up. And then, so when you freeze it up, when you take the carbon dioxide out of the air due to the old rock, but you also have eruptions, then this also takes away even more carbon dioxide, and therefore we get a snowball Earth. Interesting. I can tell I'm still sleepy. But you know what? Let's keep going. My explanations. Let me see. So far, that was a lot more technical than I was expecting. I don't remember it being this technical. But basically, there's a bunch of you might not remember all the specific details, but you just need to know that there are two processes. Okay, the first process is that there's this sort of weathering of the rock that happens because of fragmentation. There's also volcanoes. Okay, there's also volcanoes, which might have caused the fragmentation. So it's a chain of logic. The volcanoes might have helped with the fragmentation. The fragmentation helped with the rain. The rain helped with the weathering, and also the volcanoes, which when they erupted, it also helped with the weathering. So it's like a pretty complicated chain of things. It looks like a two-forked for me, when I visualize it, I see a fork and I see two things happening, okay? The volcano erupting by itself, and then this whole chain of events, this causal chain of events that goes through the rain and to the rock, okay? And both of these reduce the carbon dioxide, so it's not a single cause, it's actually multiple causes. One of the most popular ideas focuses on weathering. Oh yeah, so here we're going straight into an alternative. When Rodinia broke up, the new smaller continents scattered to locations around the equator where it was warm and wet. Oh, sorry, I just zoned out thinking about something completely unrelated. Let's keep going. The new smaller continents scattered to locations around the. So okay, we got to scattered. So I think this is a summary of basically of passage 1. Let's go. Prime conditions for weathering. In addition, there was also large volcanic regions. Okay, vulnerable to weathering. Cool. This literally is the same as passage 1. Moving on. The problem: weathering works incredibly slowly. It takes millions of years, and usually the system is such that there are other counterbalances, okay? If you, just to borrow something from US history, there's like checks and balances that automatically happen in the climate system that makes them self-correcting, okay? That if it happens over a million years, there's gonna be, or multiple millions of years, then there are gonna be other things that happen on the Earth to kind of counteract the decrease of carbon dioxide. Plus, the greater volcanic activity would have actually also released carbon dioxide, which makes it hard to push. Yeah, so the volcanoes don't simply cause weathering, which sucks up carbon dioxide. It also increases carbon dioxide. Right. This supercontinent breakup scenario could have caused the runaway cooling effect only if the weathering was more powerful than all the other checks and balances, right? Than all the other effects. Okay, so I can see this being like a really important part of the logic here. McDonald dated a volcanic region called LIP, the Franklin LIP. Excuse me. How could this happen at such a similar time? Okay. How could it be so coincident? So we're looking at the Franklin LIP and the first snowball Earth event. Maybe the Franklin LIP is actually the cause of the snowball Earth. Wow, so this one area, okay, one area could have actually caused the whole thing. It could have been the straw that broke the camel's back. Because it has a lot of sulfur, and then it lofts all this sulfur into the air, and it blocks the sun, and it can create a warming. Okay, so it causes some sort of insulating effect. And then it sat at the equator, okay, where it receives more solar energy than it radiates. So it receives a lot, okay, more than it radiates. So if you insulate it, then you make the equator colder. Does that make sense? Because it's more of a recipient. So if there were enough sulfur particles, it would more block the inbound stuff than the outbound stuff, okay? Because the sun's rays on the equator, it's more of an inbound direction. And if you block that, you could actually trigger runaway cooling. The whole system can become cold. That's pretty cool. Okay. So, after I've just finished reading, and before I move on to the questions, I want you to ask yourself, how good is your map? Do you remember what the two passages say? You know, what does the first passage say, and what's the structure of that passage? What does the second passage say? And what's the structure of that passage? And then if you're really advanced, what parts of that structure are a little unexpected and say maybe the opposite of what you were expecting? Okay? Do you have a good map? Do you know which side? Is it at the top of the passage, the middle of the passage, bottom of the passage, where a certain piece of information is? For example, if I say Franklin LIP, do you immediately know that that's going to be like in the middle of the second passage? Okay? If you do, good job. Your map is pretty good. Okay? If you don't, your map is really not good because Franklin LIP is a really important idea. You know? So, how good is your map? Check it right now. Summarize it, organize the passage in your own head right now. I'm about to tell you my version in like 10 seconds. All right, 10 seconds. I am not sleepy. I'm very awake. I'm alert. I love life. Okay, passage number 1. So what's the structure of passage number 1? It starts with some background explaining the discovery that Earth might have been frozen at some point at a specific time that it might have been frozen. I don't remember the years, but hundreds of millions of years ago. And then we raise this question, but why? Why did it freeze? And then it comes up with these guys from France, Donadieu, and Donadieu and friends, right? And Donadieu et al. And we come up with basically 2 reasons. Basically, the breaking up, the fragmentation of the supercontinent Rodinia causes rain, causes weathering. And also the volcanoes that were erupting at that time, which may have also contributed to Rodinia, causes weathering. Okay, 2 things cause weathering, both of these cause weathering. Okay, that's probably why. In passage 2, it says, no, that's the most common explanation, but probably, doesn't say it directly, but he kind of implies it, or they kind of imply it, she kind of implies it. The author implies that it's probably not very likely that the weathering effect was powerful enough to counteract all of the checks and balances, all of the other counter forces, right? So, what really could have happened that could have triggered a runaway effect? Okay, that could have made it happen all at once. Well, we find out because there's this coincidence. Okay, the Franklin LIP coincidentally had this whole sort of eruption situation going on, and that area is not only full of sulfur, which can block out the sun, but it's also in the equator where the sun heats up the earth more than the earth radiates the sun back out. Okay, and that causes potentially runaway freezing. I basically remembered all of that, and I wasn't looking at the screen. I was just looking at my monitors, seeing my data, and that's how I got it. All right, here we go. Question 43. 4th paragraph, passage 1. Oh, excuse me. So this is the reason. This is the question. Okay, this is the question. The research question. Is it B? No, it's D. Okay, I think that's pretty obvious. So let's move on. It's not a hypothesis, by the way, because if you just say why, that's not a hypothesis. If you say because, then that becomes a hypothesis. Oh, excuse me. Exposed. 28, 29. Most literally means. Let's look. Exposed rock. This is rock that is, being exposed to the elements. It's 노출. What's an English word for this? I can't think of it. It's bare, right? It's vulnerable. I mean, that's a little bit too. But yeah, is it right? It's uncovered. I remember on the test, I actually was really stuck between A and D. but then I tried to go for what common sense would say. Guarding sounds like it's something that has to guard it. So you have think about the opposite of what this word would mean in that context. Uncovered. Hello. Okay, fresh most nearly means the fresh rock from the volcano is more reactive than the old rock. So, so volcanoes create fresh rock apparently, the new rock. Yep. No problems. So far, I think they're all pretty straightforward. I don't think they need any special explanation. Let me know though if I'm going too fast and I didn't really explain. Leave a question in the comments below. I'll cover them later on when I see your comments. According to passage 2, in addition to the presence of sulfur in the LIP, which factor would have determined whether a snowball Earth was possible approximately 750 million years ago? I mean, isn't it basically the sulfur? But in addition to the sulfur, it's also the position towards the equator, which is B. Yeah. Yep, no problems. No, this is super easy. I think if you take your time reading this the passages up front, you should actually have a pretty straightforward hack job, just kind of putting the right answers together so far, at least. Oh, excuse me. McDonald's Wordsworth. Where's McDonald Wordsworth? Okay, here. So by the way, in the real test, I do circle names as I read, but because I'm reading this digitally, I'm not really annotating at all. But I circle any researchers' names for sure, because it makes it easy to spot them later on when I have to do questions like this. McDonald. So they're all the parts everything that we studied is McDonald's and Wordsworth. Okay, so I don't know what additional evidence would help. So for this one, I'm gonna actually skim A and B and C and D. I try to avoid doing this. Generally, and I think I avoided it this entire test so far. I think this is my first time having to do it. But let me force myself to predict something, just to prove to you that that this is still worth it. What is sort of lacking? We have the sulfur that blocks out the sun, and we have the geographical position next to the equator. Maybe we say something about like how large the Franklin LIP is, something like that. So those are sort of my. I feel like A is a little off topic. Yeah, this makes sense. The sulfur emitted was less than the amount of carbon dioxide emitted, because remember, you need to take away the carbon dioxide. But this is better. Yeah, because we don't know about the amounts is the problem with B. But if you look at C, volcanic eruptions in the Franklin LIP were powerful enough to propel them to an altitude where they can redirect solar energy, where they can actually block it. And this of causing the breaking of rodinia, this has nothing to do with passage 2. It's only with passage 1. So go back to the explanation of the sulfur. Let's go back to the explanation of the sulfur, which is over here. As it erupted, it would have lofted sulfur particles kilometers into the air. They block. Yeah. So this would have is a sort of assumption, and C is a confirmation. So it has to be C. Yep, no problems. And I found it just a little bit ago. It's Yeah, till 70 to 73. So that's this one. That's C. Oh wait, it's D? Oh no, I see. Oh, that's even more obvious. I think I'm rushing just because I'm like sleepy, because according to the models, if enough particles reached high enough, it would block, right? So that's obviously the best evidence now that I say it. And I did choose it in real time. I'm just being a little sloppy right now. The relationship between two passages. Passage 2 offers an alternative explanation for a phenomenon discussed in passage 1. I'm not looking at the page over here. The page is down here. This is where the page is, okay? I literally just made that up, but I have this gut feeling that my wording is like 80% accurate. Let's see. Oh my god, is that not literally what I said? Passage 2 provides an alternative explanation for a phenomenon discussed in passage 1. Did I not literally say that word for word verbatim? Insane. Okay, that woke me up a little bit. That's so. All right. This just happens because I've read enough SAT passages that that kind of wording seems pretty normal to me, and so I do. This is not something that I actually make my coachees or my students do, but just studying the wording of questions might be a beneficial little exercise if you have some extra time. I don't think it's the most high priority thing, but I think if you study the wording of questions, it will make you more comfortable over time. Okay, 50 question 50, let's go. Based on the passages, Donahue and McDonald would most likely agree on what event at the end of the Proterozoic eon. Now I need to find Proterozoic, and I'm going to try to find all the... I remember where the numbers came out. I no longer remember where the Proterozoic came out, but I'm going to find where the numbers came out. And right here we have it. 6 to 800 million years ago, so close to 600 million years ago. 600 million years ago is at the end of the Proterozoic eon. Okay? And I think we would say that the freezing happened by the end. Okay? Well, at least one freezing happened by the end. Let's just double check. Oh, this might be right. But I don't remember, because I remember which passage. I kind of remember one of the passages definitely mentioning this. Oh, but this seems more right, because both talk about volcanoes. This is kind of straightforward, actually. I'm not even going to double check the other ones. It's B. Yeah. Yes. Volcanoes. It's on both sides. They definitely agree on that. On volcanoes probably having some impact. Oh, this is a good question. It's saying that the last paragraph of passage 1 can only be valid if there's a certain condition that's met. What is that condition, right? So look at the bottom of this over here. Over here. Higher rainfall and quick weathering rock reduce the level of carbon dioxide. Okay, well, the question is, volcanoes also release carbon dioxide. So was this rainfall and quick weathering rock sufficient? Was it more powerful than the amount of carbon dioxide that was emitted? Okay. Here we go. It's not C, it's D. The rate at which carbon dioxide was captured through weathering exceeded the rate at which it was released. Okay, we have to have that balance there. Okay, and it has to flip one side or the other. Is it above 0 or is it below 0 in terms of how much it's capturing? If it's capturing more than it's emitting, then yeah, it could freeze. If it's emitting more than it's capturing, then no, it cannot freeze. So that's definitely D. Yep. Bueno. Let's go. And that happens at the when we talk about the problem. The problem is over here, and then it says plus it would have released. Okay, so this part over here up until line 60, so 57 to line 60 is the correct answer, C. Oops, I just did previous question. Oh, and that was the final. Oh, that's a hard question? That's not a hard question, guys. Is that a hard question? I guess it's a hard question. Apparently, because apparently a lot of you guys are getting that wrong. Let me know what you find hard about that question, because I kind of explained why C is correct, but I didn't explain why the other ones are incorrect or anything like that. So if you guys tell me what you guys chose for that one, if you got it wrong, then I can explain in the comments or maybe in a future video. Today I'm realizing I am actually pretty sleepy, and it is harming the quality of this stream quite a bit. So I think I'm going to wrap up with the reading today. Instead, what I'm going to, but I do want to add one announcement, which is in my Discord, which is still pretty dead because it's a very small server. With like it has several, probably has more than 100 people, but most of them are former students who don't usually use Discord in their day-to-day lives. So if you come into my Discord, you'll notice that there's not that much activity. But one thing that I'm working on right now, which I think would be pretty cool for at least for me, just for me to be able to have some sort of routine around this, is reviewing all the questions that you guys share with each other and with me. Obviously, I'll be answering questions in the Discord as well. But if you come into Discord and you're like asking questions and even helping each other out on certain questions when I'm not available, you know, if you're just being a sort of active question giver and asker, right? I'm thinking of just featuring those questions in my daily stream and just having a specific stream just to review all the questions from the previous day and then to give my explanations of them. I think that would be pretty good stuff for most people. I feel like it's oftentimes more helpful to watch an actual question on the page, on the screen, and actually have someone explaining it to you, rather than just going back and forth on text only, right? So if you like that idea, if you have some questions about your homework, your SAT or whatnot, just come into the Discord. I do have a homework help channel. A homework help channel, yeah, as well as a SAT channel, so you can separate out your different questions, and I would just sort of review all of them in one go in my daily stream. It's the idea that I'm running with right now. Obviously, this idea is not gonna fly if no one asks any questions. So just come in and feel free to bother me and bother each other, and obviously contribute. Help each other out. All right, guys, I'm about to go. Peace out.